Hello and welcome. I'm Pratap Singh. You're joining us on Newsx. Our big focus this hour, a three-member panel of senior judges has recommended the removal of Justice Yashwant Varma, the former Delhi High Court judge at whose residence piles of burnt 500 rupee notes were found in March. The Supreme Court appointed panel interviewed 55 witnesses and recorded Justice Varma's statement and submitted a 64-page report which was first sent to the President of India, Draupadi Murmu, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The panel investigating the recovery of a large stash of cash from the residence of Justice Yashwant Varma concluded that there is sufficient substance in the allegations against him. The committee found eyewitness accounts and visual evidence of a significant quantity of banknotes, some of them half burnt, at the judge's Delhi home, and also flagged his unnatural conduct, including his failure to report the incident. In fact, the report also confirms that half-burnt currency notes were in fact seen while firefighters were putting out the blaze that started late March 14th and spread to the storeroom in question. The report has said as many as 10 witnesses examined by the panel acknowledged having seen burnt or half-burnt currency notes. Furthermore, the committee said access to the storeroom where the fire broke out and the cash was found was controlled exclusively by Justice Varma and his family. It also noted that the room was later cleaned out and the notes disappeared. The inquiry has undeniably established that a substantial amount of cash was recovered from his premises. Joining us at this point is Justice Sanjay Kishan Kaul, former Supreme Court judge, for his perspective on this big story. Justice Kaul, welcome. Thank you for being with us today on Newsx.
Thank you.
My first question to you is, what is your first reaction, sir, to this probe conclusion, which I read out and which I'm sure you must have seen earlier in the day, which says that there was serious misconduct?
The report has come in public domain only today. I have quickly browsed through it. But see, they have recorded evidence, there's no doubt about it. There are certain conclusions which have been drawn on the basis of some presumptions. Let's understand this is not a criminal trial they have undertaken. I think some conclusions, like because he did not protest to go back to Allahabad, etc., some adverse conclusions have to be drawn. I wouldn't be able to support those, but they have gone on the basis that the preponderance of possibilities remain, that he was aware of these currency notes. The problematic issue is that nobody other than the oral testimony of what are perceived to be currency notes, not a single note of them is available for any analysis. Why the police did not take them into it, why did not seal the room, I don't know. But these kind of things raise some questions, I think, because they have far-reaching consequences for the judge concerned.
Yes. Justice Kaul, also, I have to ask you how much credit is due to former Chief Justice Khanna and the current CJI for the transparent manner, the way the details were put in public domain?
So, I do appreciate the fact that things have been kept in public domain, because this is something which was affecting the judiciary as a whole, I think. And a lot of criticism came in public domain, and people also made stories out of stories. If you see the kind of figures which were being bandied around, certainly which was not there even from the video or otherwise, and I have spoken earlier on public domain on this issue, saying, look, there are some burning notes which are seen in a corner, which is what the report also says. In a right corner of the room, the police and the fire brigade people saw some notes.
Yes.
Quantum is unknown, not a single note analyzed. This is the problems I envisage.
Yes. Now, I have to ask you this question, which many are also discussing today. What happens next? What is the procedure for the removal of a judge?
So this will now, it is for the parliament. It comes into their domain, because the government is debating to introduce a motion for impeachment. It has to carry forward a certain number of MPs.
Yes.
They're seeking to build a consensus. One of the issues which has been cropping up is that, is this report which is to be relied upon for purposes of the proceedings which will take place? In my respectful view, that is not so. This is a report which is a preliminary report to assist the Chief Justice in making an opinion whether something further is to be done or not. That report undoubtedly is adverse. There is, of course, a grievance of the judge that he hardly got any time to respond to the report, which was in a few hours. That's a different matter. But the Chief Justice, having forwarded the report to the government, the three-member inquiry, which is envisaged for in pursuance to the proceedings which will take place if they are introduced, is something different, I believe. So I don't think this can be a replacement for the committee to be formed for purposes of impeachment.
But also, how much does this damage the credibility of his rulings now, henceforth, if it is suggested that there was indeed corruption happening?
See, this is the issue. Is it corruption happening? Even nobody has been able to establish that these are, even with some iota, that this is kind of money received for some purposes of any judicial proceedings. Whether, if there is money, whose money is it? If the money is there, is it for some real estate consideration or not? These are all speculative ideas. Please understand that the judge, in a period of over a decade, in both Allahabad and Delhi, carried a very, very good and impeccable reputation. Also, his performance was rated very high. And Delhi is a place where it is very difficult to hide. Delhi High Court is one of the high courts which is always in the glare of the Supreme Court and the public, because it's the capital of the country. For an outsider to come here and make an impact is not easy. He did make that impact, but for this episode now coming, there's been never any talk of any integrity issues or performance issues of the judge concerned.
Yes, that it is. However, of course, this report today would, of course, be quite a setback, and that's quite a minor, adjective that I'll use definitely. But the courts, Sanjay Kaul, are so important to the running of our country. What more can be now done to ensure that rogue actions do not demean the judiciary as a whole?
See, even here, I tend to agree with you, it has had a damaging effect. Now, whether at some stage the judge still considers putting in his papers is his call. There is a view which has been held that it may be better, even if he feels this is somewhat unjustified, in the larger interest of the system, to maybe put in his papers. But that's his call. See, the judiciary works in a particular domain, in a particular manner. This episode has come to light, but nobody has been able to find out really, if you ask me, whose money it was, where did it come from, what was its purposes. That kind of a thing has not happened in this scenario, but it is enough to certainly damage the judge. I do believe that his future in the judiciary would be quite problematic, given the scenario as it is, irrespective of what happens in the proceeding which will now take place.
Indeed. So the onus on him now to step down. Otherwise, you believe the ball is now in the ambit of Parliament, and they are the ones who will take the decision, perhaps as early as the monsoon session itself.
Yes, Parliament has to take a decision, but they have to constitute a committee, in my view.
Okay.
If they have to sit within the three-member committee to be constituted by the Parliament is different from this three-member committee. He may get maybe a better opportunity if he thinks there. Maybe he would like to give some explanations for it. Ideally, he may be looking to, I'm speculating, he may be looking to some cleansing of his whatever has happened and yet step down. That's a possibility which I think I feel is the most probable.
All right, Justice Sanjay Kishan Kaul, appreciate you joining us on the broadcast with your perspective on this big story. We're in fact also now being joined by another special guest, Mahesh Malani, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India and former member of Rajya Sabha, is joining us on the broadcast. Thank you very much for being with us today on Newsx. Mahesh Malani, what is your first reaction to this probe conclusion which has come out today of serious misconduct in these proceedings?
Well, I mean, the findings, the final conclusions certainly indict the judge. I mean, they say that there's a strong case. They there are some remarks which suggest that he may actually have been responsible for the money disappearing between 14th and 15th of March when the fire broke out. Right. So I think there are some very serious observations against him. But the best. I was hearing Justice Justice Call of the Supreme Court say that the best possible solution would be for Justice Varma to resign, and I certainly agree with that. I mean, I think it's causing the institution a lot of harm, right? And it's causing personal damage to the image of the judge himself, and I don't see why he doesn't realize that. The possible only reason why he is not resigning is because if he resigns, he loses the protection of Veeraswamy's case, which is that only the Chief Justice of India,
Yes.
can sanction his his investigation and prosecution for any offences. And I disagree with Justice Call. I was listening to him. I disagree with him on one aspect, right? You don't have to. This doesn't have to be bribe money. Right? If there is a large amount of money, right, in cash, right, that itself raises a suspicion of the commission of a crime. What that crime is that it is disproportionate assets. Now, the finding of the 3-judge inquiry committee is very clear on one aspect, that the only person who had access to that outhouse in which the fire took place and the money, both in sacks on the ledges and sacks on the floor, were found. The only person who had access was the family, was Justice Varma and his family, and members of his staff,
Yes.
who could only access it under his authority. Those findings are very clear. So, look, if this kind of amount was found with anybody else, right, and what happened, what happened between the 14th and the 15th is shocking. I mean, there are about 15 fire officers and police officers put together who have said there were half-burnt 500 rupee notes all over the outhouse. Now, are they all lying? And then, again, Justice Call is right there when he says that, perhaps the police should have sealed those premises. And that seems to be a grave error on their part.
Yes.
But that the money was there and that after Justice Varma came in.
That has been established.
It ceased not to be there in the outhouse.
Yes.
Is, according to me, an extremely startling and incriminating fact. Now,
Okay.
I don't want to say anything more because I don't want to prejudice his case against Justice Varma.
Yeah.
We all know he's been a very fine, exemplary judge in the past. He's had a great reputation.
Yes.
But antecedents alone
Yes.
can't help you, right? When there are circumstances of an extremely
Yes.
serious, and
How much
it's about
damage do you
time
believe?
that
Mahesh Jethmalani, how much damage
I
do you
believe-
believe this alleged black money has done to the prestige, though, of the entire institution?
Once something like this happens, it just snowballs. I mean, it snowballs in the sense that people say that you can't trust the judiciary. Everybody gets tainted by this kind of an incident. And it doesn't help that the judiciary, which has arrogated itself the power to cleanse its origin stables, right, through Veeraswamy's case, right? It itself has done that no judge should be harassed for the performance of his duties by frivolous allegations, right? But then, are these frivolous allegations? And we are well now past 3 months from this incident. Either you say there is nothing, right? Or please, for God's sake, any ordinary citizen on these circumstances would have been prosecuted, right? There would have been investigation at least, if not a prosecution.
Yes. Yes.
So please let the criminal law take its course, right? He may, he may not even be ultimately found. The case may not be found worthy of a charge sheet, right? But why would you not let that happen?
Yes.
Why would you let the procedure of investigation go on? I am a little astounded, right?
Yes.
Because
Now,
then
Justice
it shows-
Cole, in that previous interview, has said perhaps the most prudent step for this individual would be to step down. Why do you believe, Mr. Jethmalani, he has not already resigned?
I said that at the outset. The reason why he didn't possibly resign is because if he resigns, he ceases to be a public servant. And if he ceases to be a public servant, the protection afforded to a sitting judge of the High Court, the Supreme Court, from investigation and prosecution goes away. he no longer has that protection, then he actually, right, can be prosecuted. But so long as he's a public servant, and he's a public servant till he either resigns or Parliament removes him. Right? So now it's up to Parliament to first remove him, and then Veeraswamy, right, kicks in.
Yes. Do you believe, looking at this report now and its contents, that criminal proceedings should be initiated?
Look, I mean, I don't want to usurp the Chief Justice of India's jurisdiction, right? But yes, I mean, I have to say that in my very humble view, right, this is a case for an investigation at least, and certainly that should be sanctioned.
Okay, okay. Now, how much also damage has been done already to the credibility of his rulings as well? If it's now indeed suggested in this report today that there was alleged corruption, this money was there at his residence, how much damage has been done to the rulings that he will perhaps be giving in the next few days?
I can't give you an answer in terms of quantum, exact quantum.
Yes.
But it certainly is an extremely damaging, it certainly does put a cloud. Almost any disgruntled litigant now will stand up and say, look, I don't know whether I got a fair judgment in my case, any disgruntled litigation. So, that's more reason why the matter needs to get a quick closure, right? Because unless that is done, nobody is going to trust. Forget this judge, the judiciary, because it is now only the judiciary who can clean it. And as I said, the judiciary assumed this power. They interpreted Article 124 of the Constitution to say so. And now if they don't do it, having assumed that part or arrogated that part of themselves by judicial construction, it will be a very sad day for the judiciary and for the litigating public.
The judiciary also, Mr. Jethmalani, is so important for the running of our country. It's a very important pillar in our democracy. What should be done now to ensure that rogue actions do not demean the judiciary as a whole?
Look, there are only two alternatives the way you can deal with this, right? This may or may not be symptomatic of a larger malaise within the institution, right? There's only two ways you can deal with it, right? Prima facie, it's a case for investigation, right? And stepping down by the judge, but he doesn't want to do so. Right? But the first part is a part of saying, let's forget an investigation, etc. Right? In which case, the judiciary is failing in the duty which it has, as I keep saying, right, itself cast upon itself. That's one way of doing it. Then there will be no deterrent. There will be no deterrent at all for future.
Okay.
You investigate this at least, right?
Yes.
And show that you are serious about instances of possible, let me put the case at its best, possible judicial corruption, right? The system has failed us, and there will always be nagging questions, and the judiciary will only have itself to blame.
Okay. My final question to you before we let you go. You've also been a parliamentarian. Mr. Jethmalani, is that where the onus is going to lie now on Parliament? Next, what happens next in this case? Mr. Jethmalani, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, what happens next in the case? Is it going to be up to Parliament to decide?
Well, I'm told that, yes, I've been told that I'm no longer a member of Parliament, but I've been told that certainly Parliament is taking up this issue in the forthcoming session, and, all parties have been sounded out about it. So,
what's the procedure? You've been an MP yourself, you understand procedure. What's going to be the procedure then?
Well, I mean, there's got to be, the procedure is that there's got to be a petition first by at least 50 members of either house, and then there will be a vote taken in Parliament, and that vote basically, in a nutshell, I'm telling you, there will be a vote taken ultimately, right? The judge, of course, will be given a chance either through his counsel. I remember Kapil Sibal had done it once for Justice Ramaswamy. He'll have a right, of course, to defend himself against impeachment. And finally, a vote will be taken. The case against him will be set out. The defense will then reply, and the matter will be put to vote. And if it's a special majority, right, 2/3 of those present and voting in both houses, right, will constitute the green signal for going ahead with his removal.
Okay. Appreciate you joining us, Mahesh Malani, with your perspective on this big story. All right, we are also being joined, in fact, now by Sanjay Hegde, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India. Mr. Hegde, welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us. What is your first reaction to this probe conclusion, which is out today, which hints at serious misconduct?
Well, my first question is, how did the report come out? It was obviously a secret document which had been forwarded by the judiciary to the executive for necessary action, including possibly impeachment. Now, Justice Kaul is here. He will tell you that these documents are meant only for the eyes of the highest authority is concerned. This ought not to have come out, and not in this fashion. It may be the case of an individual judge and the facts of an individual case, but based on that, as Mr. Mahesh Malani was saying, the entire judiciary gets tarnished with this. I am really worried about the precedent that has been set. You see, you in journalism have long got used to police leaking out contents of investigation, of charge sheets and things like that, or draft charge sheets, and everybody goes around the table talking away. This is the first time in a judge's case where 3 judges, for the purpose of an in-house inquiry, submitted a report in confidence.
Yes.
A copy was given to the judge concerned, and the copy went to the judiciary, to the Chief Justice of India, who then forwarded it to the government. So my real question is, who leaked it? And
you're questioning how it's come in the public domain. You're questioning how it's come in the public domain. Fair enough.
Is a bad precedent.
Okay, fair enough. But what do you make of the contents now that you've had a chance to look at them?
Well, the contents, of course, are disturbing. They also need to be explained at greater detail. Right? The committee just looked at 3 questions. Was there cash? If there was cash, was it under the control of the judge or his family? And what is to be done next? They obviously were not in a position to gather where the cash came from. They were also not in a position to investigate the judge's defense that he was being framed. Essentially, they said yes, because of the witnesses and statements and the videos, they concluded that there was a substantial amount of cash in that room. They could not with any certainty ascertain the full value of the cash. And they said that because it is the judge's house, the particular structure is part of the house, it must be assumed that it was under the control of the judge and his immediate family.
Yes, yes.
So there are a lot of assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the judge has not caved in, the fact that the judge wants to put out a defense, that intrigues me.
Okay. But how much damage do you believe all of this has done to the prestige of the judiciary, such an important institution in our country?
Well, there have been moments which have been bad for the judiciary, but the judiciary has always thrown out, it's come out with finer moments as well. Yes, it has damaged the judiciary. It has also damaged the legal profession, because as Mr. Jetmalani was saying, there will be disgruntled litigants who will say that they were done hard by. There will also be prospective litigants who will be asking lawyers, do you have any access to Judge X or Judge Y? And that is the real danger. Please, to those watching, I would like to believe that this is an aberrant situation. Maybe there is an explanation.
Okay.
And the fact that the judge concerned is insisting on his right of defense, makes me open to the idea that maybe there is something to be said in his favor, which he wants to say.
Okay, but what
I'd
is
like
the
to hear
procedure
out the
ahead now?
case.
What is the procedure ahead now? What happens next in this case, Sanjay Hegde?
What happens next is that if Parliament chooses to take the impeachment forward, then they would have to constitute a committee under the Judges Inquiry Act. I've seen all these plants which say that, oh, 3 judges have already inquired, why should we repeat the exercise? No, those are 2 separate exercises, and if there is if there's a procedure which is prescribed in law, then that has to be followed. So if Parliament admits the motion and then sends it for a judicial inquiry in this session of Parliament, maybe by the next session of Parliament, the Judges Inquiry Committee will come out with a report.
Why do you believe Mr. Hegde has chosen not to step down just yet? And do you believe he should step down before such a committee meets so that parliamentary process begins?
See, these are very deeply personal questions. I can't speak for the judge, nor do I have any access to his mind. It would, if the person had no defense, he would have been looking for an out. If the judge, for any reason, believes he has a defense and he wants to put it forward, then he's entitled to.
What protection does a judge have against criminal proceedings, Sanjay Hegde?
Not much. See, all this thing about should the Delhi police have stayed away and, because the judiciary did not give permission, there has been no investigation, to my mind, is poppycock. They could have just filed a FIR against unknown persons if and when they wanted, after the end of the investigation they wanted to add the judge as an accused. That is the stage when they could have very well gone to the Chief Justice for his permission. But there was nothing which prevented an investigation of the fire. Was it criminal in nature? Because the report itself mentions the possibility of arson.
Yes.
So now if somebody were able to set fire to a judge's bungalow,
Okay.
then there certainly could be a criminal act.
Okay.
While there is a protection for an individual judge, there is no protection for criminals at large.
Okay.
And certainly there is no reason why this matter could not have been criminally investigated.
Do you believe then that now criminal proceedings should be initiated?
Well, even now it can be. I see no reason why it cannot be.
Should the process be directed by the court then to bring
No,
in the ED,
why?
to bring in the ED or the CBI?
I'm sorry, but what prevents a policeman from filing an FIR? Why do you need a court supervision? If you are investigating an incident which may have criminal overtones, without bringing the judge, without directly saying that the judge is an accused.
Yes.
Because see, there could have been a crime in as much as somebody brought that money and kept it there, whether the judge or somebody else also. There could be criminality there. There
Okay.
could have been criminality in the possibility of arson.
Okay.
A determined investigator would not have found
Okay.
the requirement of go ahead from the Chief Justice too much of a bother.
All right. Let's leave it at that. Sanjay Hegde, thank you for joining us with your perspective on that big story. Now, we also have with us Vikas Singh, live, former Additional Solicitor General of India and Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India. He's, of course, just won that bar election as well. Thank you for being with us today. What is your first reaction to the probe conclusion, Mr. Singh, of serious misconduct that has become public today?
So, well, you see, there is a Judges Inquiry Act which the legislature has enacted, under which normally these kind of inquiries should be done. But the situation has become a little complicated after the Supreme Court said that no FIR can be registered against a judge without the permission of the Chief Justice of India. Now, the result is that here in this case, a regular investigation could not take place or did not take place. I'll rather say did not take place. It could have taken place in spite of the judgment of the Supreme Court, because they could have at least sealed the place, and they could have at least approached the CGI overnight or within hours and got his permission to register the FIR. So this did not happen. Now, if it did not happen and all the evidence has gone, so now the Judges Inquiry Act, which is a statutory inquiry, will not be able to get anything out of this, because it will go by the regular criminal procedure. Now, when we are looking at the conduct of a judge, and we want to give him a very high status of FIR also not being registered against him without the permission of the CJI, and FIR actually not being registered in this case, then the other option which the Supreme Court itself has created is the in-house inquiry. Now, the in-house inquiry is not a normal inquiry. It's a very elaborate inquiry. About 50, 60 evidences were taken. People were asked to give their depots before them. And after a very, very detailed inquiry, this report has come.
Yes.
Now, having got this report, in my view, the Parliament should straight away go on the basis of the report, frame charges and put it to voting for impeachment, because then going back to the Judges Inquiry Act will really be, because if you see the Constitution doesn't, make the right to impeach subject to any law made by Parliament. The Constitution straight away says that by majority, two-third majority, an impeachment can happen.
Okay.
Judges Inquiry Act is an independent inquiry. So if this kind of inquiry had not happened, probably Judges Inquiry Act would be mandatory, and
okay.
Only after that the impeachment process would have been initiated.
Yes.
But here had a very detailed and a very elaborate inquiry.
Yes.
A credible inquiry, I will say, because
yes.
these are all serving judges or chief justices of the High Court, and they have given all due credence to the
yes.
whatever probability that he could have shown in his
yes.
favor, and still found him guilty. So after having found him guilty, I think this is a case where they should have. This should be put straight away to Parliament.
Okay. So the ball should shift straight away to Parliament's court is what you're clearly saying. There is a session, of course, which is happening next month itself. But how much damage has all of this, Mr. Singh, done to the prestige of such an important institution, according to you?
So according to me, even if you look at the Prevention of Corruption Act, in 2018, there was an amendment that there should be a permission required, a sanction required before you start an investigation. Now, Section 18A. Even there is an exception of trap cases or cases where this kind of money would be found. According to me, now it's high time for the Supreme Court to relook at its judgment, which bars a FIR registration, by further providing that if it's a trap matter or if it's a matter where large amount of cash is recovered, then in those cases, no permission of the CGI should be obtained and the FIR should be registered. Because just see what has happened in this case. If the matter goes to trial, there will be nothing for the trial court as evidence, hardcore evidence, to hold Justice Varma guilty or to hold the people who were involved in this money, transaction guilty. And in my view, this is a huge lapse on the part of the Delhi police by not registering the FIR at least against unknown persons or not approaching the Chief Justice overnight and taking his permission overnight and registering the FIR, or at least sealing the place. That nobody could have stopped the Delhi police from doing. They could have sealed that place and kept it completely secure till the Chief Justice of India saw the place and got the FIR registered, and then because what has happened is, in this time lag that has happened now, it will be very difficult to now establish the players who were involved in bringing in the money, taking back the money, the purpose of money being given, etc. So I think it's a damage to the institution, but we have to take corrective action.
There is a question in everyone's minds then today about what the procedure is for the removal of a judge. Is it just in Parliament's domain, or is there a procedure in place which could we see happening in the next few weeks?
Yes, so there is a procedure in place Where there has been no inquiry and there is simply an allegation, then there is a procedure in place which says that the matter has to go to under the Judges Inquiry Act. Now, in this case, that procedure has not been followed because we have followed the in-house procedure which has been, decided by the Supreme Court itself. And the in-house procedure, after having, done a very credible inquiry, has given its findings. So in my view, the Parliament is not bound by the report under the Judges Inquiry Act before proceeding for impeachment. The Parliament can straight away go ahead and impeach the judge on the basis of the findings under the Judges Inquiry Act.
Yes.
And that, I think, can happen straight away in this coming session of Parliament. So I don't see any impediment in the impeachment process going ahead simply by framing charges.
Okay.
And on the basis of those charges, taking the matter straight for voting for impeachment.
Okay. But on the criminal proceedings question now, what protection does a sitting judge have against criminal proceedings, Vikas Singh?
So as of now, under law, there is actually no protection. But by a judgment of the Supreme Court, it has been held that without the permission of the Chief Justice of India, there can be no FIR against a sitting judge, or not even, in fact, against a lower court judge also without the permission of the Chief Justice of the High Court. So that procedure is already in place. So even if there is a commission of a cognizable offence or there is an allegation of a commission of a cognizable offence, the FIR cannot be straight away registered. And that is why I feel that the the inquiry that has been done under the Judges Inquiry Act should be given credence, because once you have by a judicial order only barred the registration of an FIR, then another judicial order says that there has to be an in-house inquiry. So if you read the two judicial orders together,
yes,
then the only inescapable conclusion is that this Judges Inquiry Act inquiry is not necessary anymore.
Okay.
And the and I feel in this case even now FIR should be registered. I don't
My final
see why
question
FIR
then too. As you are saying, yes, the FIR should have been registered. It should be registered is clearly what you are saying. Do you believe then that the court should direct to bring in the ED or CBI?
No, so it's not a question of bringing in the court. I think the Chief Justice of India should straight away grant permission, even while Justice Varma is not impeached.
Yes.
And get the FIR registered. And once the FIR gets registered, then the law will take its own course. Then the investigating machinery, kicks in, and they will have all the powers of looking at whatever evidence is important for the purposes of taking the case forward.
Why do you believe he's not stepped down so far? And do you believe he should resign?
Of course,
before this parliamentary
resigned,
process
he's
starts.
taking advantage of the fact that he has already removed the money, and he feels that because of the removal of the money, he can go scot-free, which according to me is actually begging the question, because he's scot-free so far only because of the fact that there is a protection by a judicial order for registering an FIR against him. So he can't use that protection to say that there is nothing found in the inquiry at his residence, and accordingly he doesn't need to resign.
Okay. Okay. Vikas Singh, we leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on this big story. On that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. Comprehensive show there with some of the best legal minds in our country decoding this big story on the judiciary today. Let's slip into a short break.